So let's see how the game continues. A few moves on, we can see again that Sakata has taken some territory on the side here, and his group is pretty much alive. It's not quite connected up. There's this little space here left behind, but this group is going to be fine. And if black comes out, white can just start working his way in toward the center, which wouldn't necessarily be in black's favor because white would be reducing his center potential while he ran out. This was a very interesting exchange, I thought. The AI doesn't think much of any of these moves in particular, but this solid connection in response to white's approach, this stone pillar, is very much, I think, a Kajiwara move. It's solid, takes some territory, and keeps the pressure on white. And then this jump following it is in the same vein. It looks slow, but all he's doing is putting pressure on white. And so white has to expend a few moves over here while black is expanding his middle. So it's interesting to see the way Kajiwara has used the potential, the latent potential to attack this group on the right to get some solid territory and also expand his middle. And now here's an interesting kind of direction of play proposition. When white approached black here, why didn't black jump? And then white would maybe play over here. These 2 points are maybe Mii. This point here and this point here. They're interchangeable. So why did Kajiwara's sense of the direction of play, of the flow of the game, say, not this one, but this one? And I think the answer has to do with white has undercut him here. If black were to jump here and white were to reduce him in the middle, not only is white making a nice looking shape in the middle himself, if black were to play here, for example, white can at any time jump in like this and completely reduce this side territory. And a black move here has no effect on the white corner. White could just, again, dig under, right? And so the answer here is black's center territory is going to grow from here. And this move also puts pressure on white's group still. This cut is still looking to be, taken advantage of it. There's still potential left here. And so in Kajiwara's mind, he's looking at this and going, not this, but this is the direction of play. This is the correct flow, the correct continuation of the game. Even if white gets to come over here and do something to this one stone, black is in effect saying, this is not the valuable area. This is the valuable area. And he's correct. The AI agrees that black still has the lead in this game. Let's see how it goes. And here we are a few moves later, and you can see that black has kind of changed the direction of his goal, which is to now take some territory on the bottom here. This is another aspect, I think, of Kajiwara's Go, which is very interesting. He flows around the board and is not so tangled up in, this was my territory from the very beginning. He doesn't really approach territory as being something that's yours indefinitely, like, say, Sakata Eio does. Sakata says, this is my territory. I've claimed it. It's mine. You can't take it. And Kajiwara says, territory comes and goes, man. You gotta find the real meaning of the go, dude. Right? Maybe he's not so chill like that, but you get the feeling. Kajiwara says, fine, if you want to reduce my center, I'm going to transition to the bottom. These moves changed the direction of the play. The flow went this way. And so in a sense, you can feel the malleability of Kajiwara's go here. He's turning from one direction to the other. When Sakata says, I'm worried about your center territory being so big, Kajiwara says, well, that's fine, I'll just make some bottom territory here instead. And now, finally, Kajiwara comes over here and puts the pressure back on white. But there's a very clever move for white in this situation to defend the cut. Can you find it? Holy shit, I didn't write it down. Guys, I didn't write it down. I didn't write down what the Tsuji was. Oh my god. Who's a dum-dum? I'm a dum-dum. Man, we're just gonna have to cut that out. Continuing on, 76. Another interesting exchange happened over here on the right-hand side. White gives up some of the territory in the corner to make a very solid group in the middle. You can see again that black has kind of shifted the focus of the game again here. The center has been the thing from the start, but black has consistently given white the chance to reduce it in exchange for taking a lot of territory on the bottom and reducing white's corner. Now here's really the first mistake you could say that Kajiwara makes in this game. This would be a very big move, and it would be sente against the corner. White needs to respond here or he's dead. And this would also give black really good shape to be alive, so that he could come back and defend his moyo, and he would win the game, basically. It wouldn't be a huge win. It wouldn't be like 15 points in black's favor, but if you're a professional player, you can start counting from this position and say that you have a solid 6-point lead or so. And so at the end, even if you give a few points to white, you would end up winning the game by, 3-4 points. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, however you want to look at it, Kajiwara isn't here to win. He's here to play go, man. He is here to play go. And this is way too calm to be a Kajiwara game. He wants to see what's really true. How much can he get out of that center? How much can he wriggle around the edges? And so Kajiwara's not going to play anything calm like this. He's going to keep the game exciting to the very end. We can see Sakata starting to play his game, right? There's a cut here, still left from the very beginning of the game. Now we can see how this move here has really come into play. Black's side here isn't so big because it's still undercut, right? White didn't give black this move. Imagine, if you will, the difference that this exchange could have made. This territory is much bigger. This cut is much smaller, right? But because black doesn't have this stone, the game is starting to look a little more difficult for Kajiwara at this point. And Sakata is starting to play, like we said, his game. The game of, how can I cut you? Little cuts until you die. Death by a million cuts when you play against the razor. But the game's not over yet. There's one last big confrontation where Kajiwara really wants to test his mettle against Sakata. Here we are, and you can see that we could almost analyze this game again from the perspective of Sakata and really appreciate the razor sharp ability he has to reduce and attack. It's just amazing from that perspective to see Black Kajiwara have to take 2 moves over here to secure a territory that already looked to be guaranteed his. And then to also save this stone while sacrificing 2 stones in the center, which is nothing comparatively. So with that perspective, it's amazing to see the ability of Sakata Eio in reducing Black's territory here. That said, Kajiwara also did some amazing responses by going with the flow and saying, you know what? I realize I can't stop you. There was that Agi there, and I knew that. So I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to take this instead. And you can see how that really played a big role here. Kajiwara now has this center, where this center is no longer big anymore, right? If White wants, when White can connect here and save these stones, now Black has had to transition his territory. And that is a very key aspect of Kajiwara's game. He's okay to give up this territory because he'll take this territory. This give and take of go is something that Kajiwara feels is the almost centerpiece of how the game is supposed to be played. It's a 2-person game. You can't be greedy, take. You also have to give. Now we are coming up to the moment of real truth, where we get to find out if it's Sakata's razor or Kajiwara's sword that cuts deeper. And in this game, what's a really key intrinsic part of what you're seeing is the way that Kajiwara has played with his malleable territory. He never saw this as being solidly his. And just the way in reverse that Sakata Eio has masterfully used all the little bits of aji left over, especially up here in the upper left-hand corner, to keep in the game, to stay in the game, and really keep pushing Kajiwara to the limit. And so here comes this final moment. Let's take a look at it. Here it is. The moment has come. White threatens to take away this entire territory, to connect. And Kajiwara, on the hunt for truth, says, no, you want this? I'll trade you for your entire upper left-hand corner. Kajiwara says this is sente against the corner. That if white does not respond, it's dead. What do you think? Does white need to respond? The answer is no, he doesn't. And there's going to be a very slick trick that maybe only Shinogi Sakata himself could find. So this move alone changed Kajiwara's winning percentage from 90% to the reverse. Now Sakata has a 90% chance of winning the game. And the more of Kajiwara's games you look at and the more games of his you analyze, you realize that he takes these gambles in the search for truth. And sometimes they really pay off with magnificent, beautiful, flip-flopping games, and then other times they're duds and he doesn't get anything out of them. And I think that is what makes Kajiwara's Go so amazingly interesting to play and review and look over. Because you never know what he's going to do, right? He's this crazy Diogenes Jung kind of guy who's just on the hunt for what the actual truth is. Is this going to work? I think it is. Will it really? And he's here to play Go. And so let's see the last few moves of the game that demonstrate that no, he's actually made a mistake. Where is Sakata's response? Let's take a look. And there it was, this amazing cut and hane. It doesn't look like much, but this one move that black has to respond to here on the outside means that white's corner is alive. And that's the kind of play we expected from Shinogi Sakata. Just this amazing, like everyone would maybe probably look like, oh, what about in here somewhere kind of thing to defend, right? But if you do that, then you give black sente to come back. The fact that black had to take, gote, he had to end capturing these two stones, means that Sakata lived here in sente and could come back and just completely destroy black's territory here. And so the game goes on for another dozen moves or so, but in the end, Kajiwara had to resign. But we could masterfully see Kajiwara at his prime here, where he had control of the game from the very start. He flew around the board and flowed around the board, and his direction of play led him to time and time again to having the advantage throughout this game. And it took somebody of Sakata Eio's caliber to stay in the game and use the little bit of aji left behind to wrestle the game away from him. So this was a loss for Kajiwara, but in no way was it a loss for anyone who's an admirer of beautiful Go.
By the way, you can also watch these lessons on our platform, gomagic.org. Except there, you'll watch them with interactive quizzes right within the lessons and practical exercises right after them. And if you enjoy watching these Go videos and you don't want to miss others like this one, go smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and this is Go Magic.